Well, good afternoon. We're back with I think the second video I've done today. We're back because I decided, well, let's just get some glass cut. So what we want to do to get started on this, and once I get started, things really start to kind of move along a little better. I don't know about a little quicker, but I kind of get into, I think the hardest part of any of this stuff is to get it started. Well, that's what we're going to do. I thought I had this glass, which I do, and I think this is Yakagani. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use on this border glass. And here's the frame of mind that's dictating the border glass. Bear in mind that we're going to be glue chip here. We're going to be in an emerald green on all this Celtic knotwork and ribbons. I like that. The guy asked me about, I call these cords and he called them ribbons. I like the idea of the ribbons better. So anyway, these ribbons, those are going to be a real beautiful cathedral emerald green. So that, and I knew I wanted to do these roses in some sort of a pink, and I think we already talked about this glass right here that I'm going to use for the center rose. And I think I may have another little chunk of this. If I do, let's turn this light on. If I do, I might be able to get, I think there might be enough of it. I can get out on the outer extremities here and make those 3 other roses. And when I speak of the 3 other roses, I'm talking about these roses. So I have some pink glass too that looks real good. And so I could go that direction versus the cranberry. Anyway, whatever I decide with those 2, or the 3 roses, and of course the one in the center is going to be the big drapery. But this glass, I'm turning this where you can see what I'm doing here. This is the glass that we're going to use in the border. And I love this glass, but there's quite a lot of transition in the glass between wispy, whitish parts, pink and green. And so there it is. Now that is going to make an outstanding border, but there's some issues where it gets so dark down here and real light here, real light over here. Now we won't have to get this far over. So we'll be in this section of the sheet right here working the border. And I'm starting to think now that as I strip these pieces off, I may just cut those pieces and cut this part out and then use that dark green in say in the leaves or some other place on this, because I can't really get that border to transition to that extreme right there. So it might be smart. I don't know whether that would be smart or not. I was going to say it might be smarter to just cut this sheet off right here. But boy, do I need to think about that. I'm going to rethink that. And here's why. I'm going to go ahead and strip it full length. And then we'll take these much darker pieces that we don't really want in the border. And the 34 millimeters that we're going to use to strip this off with is more than enough glass to use in the leaves. Boy, I tell you what, it probably wouldn't look too bad right there if I picked up the right background glass behind this. It would probably look real good right there. So there's places that we can put this. It's not like we're wasting it. And that'll mean that I can take that border and confine it more to colors that are working together all up on both sides of the border and then across the bottom and the top. So let's just strip this thing off. Oh, I don't know how many we're going to need. Well, if we're whacking off the bottom, we'll need about 3 of them. Now I'm starting to think, let's go take this over to better light and see if I wouldn't be smarter in taking this sheet like this. Boy, there's some glass in here that I can use in several places on here. Well, then I'm glad I didn't anticipate having to think this over. So let's put this in the light and see if, see, this is perfect border. Look at that. So I've got plenty of glass to get into the border with here. This is just not what I want to put into the border. So if I took this sheet cut it, let me put my hand where you can see. If I cut around here and then went down this way, I would pull all that out. I'm trying to think, if I went ahead and stripped these 34, could I use those greens just as easily that way? I think the answer to that's probably yes. But see, you got to be really thinking about this because you only get one shot at this. You're either going to strip this thing full length or you're going to try to cut this out. Well, I don't know. I don't really want to destroy that part of the sheet over here because we're only going to need X number of strips. So let's just strip it. And then, yeah, there you go. We're starting to think now. Then we'll get what we can get out of those 34 millimeter strips here that we're going to use in some other place. And then if we needed more, larger pieces or whatever, we still have all this intact down here, and we can make a decision at that point to cut that part of that sheet off right there. So let's go that way. That makes sense. All right. This side of this sheet has a little bit of texture to it, not much. It's not enough that you would call it a textured sheet. This side of the sheet is much smoother, but in my past practice with stripping this stuff off, I had a couple of problems. I don't know whether it was on this sheet or not, some other sheet, where it didn't really break where I wanted it. And now, because we're not using, say, 8, 10, 12 inches of this bottom of this thing, it's real important that we get it stripped off this time. I don't want any, excursions off some other direction other than where we want it stripped. So I did find out from previous experience that, I'm trying to think, is this glass clean? It sure feels clean, but let's do that. We don't like to take any kind of chances here. Why not take 30 seconds and clean this and make sure, because we just don't want any problems here. And I think we'll strip off 3 strips. We'll probably need more than that, but we'll strip 3 to start with. Yeah, look at there. See, now that probably wouldn't make that much difference, but why have any dirt on there when you're trying to get this stuff to work? And expensive glass, I really am not so concerned about the money as much as I am, I don't have another sheet of this. And I want this thing intact, Okay, I got a brand new, I don't know what I did with my old one. Here it is. Yeah, it's somewhere. Around here somewhere. Here it is. This one still works. I'm highly recommending this thing. Sharpie Ultra Fine Point. You're about to see why. For years, I used Papermate Flare Medium to do what we're about to do here. And then I went to this Sharpie Ultra Fine Point, found it by accident, and I've just about worn this one out. I've worn all the logo and all that stuff off of it. It still works, but you got to kind of pump it a little bit. And so I got a brand new one here because we're going to want no issues here. Okay, so let's do this. Now, somebody says, well, why don't you get one of those Morton stripping systems or whatever? I got enough gimmicks and stuff already. Plus, I don't think they make one that'll strip a sheet of glass. How long is this thing? 30-something inches. Yeah, 3 feet. Now, they may make one that strips 3 feet, but I don't know. I don't need it. I just soon do it this way. All right, now, the border on this panel is 34 millimeters. As you watch me work on this stuff, you're going to find out that the millimeter stuff is the way to go. This inches stuff, it's just not accurate enough. So let's go right here. And I don't know whether you can see what I'm doing or not. Here, there. 34 is... I want to get where I can see. 34 is that little dot right there. And let's go down here and get 34. And I'll talk about the glass cutter here. I'd already put a dot on there earlier, but I got on there with that window cleaner, and I didn't want to take a chance on not having the dots. Okay, I put some masking tape on the back of this thing so it doesn't skid around as much. But because this glass is handmade glass, look how that's laying on a flat table. Look at that. That glass is doing some of this, so, you know, when I'm putting all that pressure on this thing coming down here to break it, or to score it rather, we just hope that we're not in a hole somewhere where this thing splits across there. I'm not going to like that, because we need these are relatively long pieces here in respect to anything breaking where we don't want it. So we're going to set up our ruler, and because I don't want this thing to move, I'm going to mark it, right? And so I've got these little containers of old glass, and I'm going to set that right there, and another one right here, and see that this thing's not going to move around on me. Okay, right down there is that little black mark, and right there is a little black mark. So we don't want to be pushing on this. We're just going to take this. Now I'm already off that mark a little bit right there. I didn't like that, so I got to open them, put a little bit more of the mark where I can see it. There. Right there. Okay, so we're going to do that again. And man, I'm doing that just barely touch, because I don't want to move anything here. All right, let's see what that mark looks like. And then we'll talk about the glass cutter. Oh yeah, see, now that's the beauty of a brand new one. All right, now I had stripped off a strip of glass off this thing before, and I can see right here where I'm off just, you know, I mean, I'm not a computer, but when I was running that glass cutter down there, I veered off just a hair. Well, that's not going to be a problem, because we could take that, if that ends up in some portion of this thing that we think's going to give us trouble. Well, that's not going to be hard to fix, but we could just turn that around and get that under the U channel, so it's not going to be a problem. So the idea of doing this stuff is that you want this line as straight as possible with your glass cutter. Okay, there are 3 different glass cutters that I use, and that's it. That's the whole program right there. And the silver snit I really like, and I was using the silver snit. There you can see the name on it, silver snit. I was using the silver snit just about exclusively for all this stuff, because it's such a good glass cutter. But I found out, I think the hard way, that there are indentations in this glass, you know, manufacturing indentations. And that little wheel I'd go rolling along, and then that thing would get into a little cavity, and then I'd have to work my way back out of it. Well, you don't really want anything to interrupt the amount of pressure that you're applying to your a pressure you're applying to your score. So I jumped out of that, and I thought, you know, my Fletcher glass cutters, I have 2 different kinds. They're both the same. They're ball cutters. Fletcher makes about 8 or 10 different versions of these 2. But if you notice, now this wheel here is larger than the silver snit wheel. Now these are what we're going to use for really all the cutting on the whole project, because there's so many small pieces of glass. However, I did find by trial and error that this big wheel really worked well getting over this rough glass, so that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to try to set you up here where you can see what I'm doing. And I see my line a little bit doubly there because I went over it twice. No big deal, we'll just go down the center. Now, what we're hoping for here is, because this sheet is so ripply, that I get this pressure applied on this thing and we don't get a crack across this sheet. That can really happen, and I don't see any kind of way out of that. I wonder if, I don't know whether this would help or not. I'm always trying to get out of a mess. Okay, here's this rubber stuff you buy to go into the bottoms of, what is that thing? Tool chest, the floor of a tool chest. This is stuff you buy to put your tools on. I'm wondering if, this might be a mistake here. I don't know. Let me see what this. See, that makes me rise up here. I don't know. Well, let's just experiment. And then if this thing breaks down here somewhere, this experiment failed. I'm just trying to get this thing flat where it doesn't move, I think you know what I'm talking about. Whoops. Okay, turn it the right way. Okay, and and what makes this work or not work is adequate, consistent pressure, because right now we're trying to score it. And we want that score to follow, I wish I get my words right, the fracture to follow the score. Well, the score has got to be really ideal for that to happen. Boy, I'll tell you one thing, this bigger wheel works a lot better than that little wheel over this. It's getting kind of rough along here. Oh, I'm off just a hair, not much. Now here we're going to get into the area. If I've made a mistake with that piece of rubber, we're about to find out. And so far, now it's getting rougher. Ooh, see, this wheel is working. If that had been the silver schnit, we'd been falling in all these cracks here, or divots, whatever they are. All right. I've got to tell you, there's a little bit of anxiety involved in that, because I really need this to be one piece of glass. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is, well, this will tell us how good a score that we have. The silver schnit runner, in my opinion, there's none better. So we're going to put that little button, or that little bump, right under that score. And I'm going to get out here on the end and give it a gentle squeeze and see if I can get it to fracture. If it fractures, then, ooh, I think it fractured. Yeah, okay. That's a good sign. Now I'm going to see if I can run it by hand, and I'm optimistic. Yeah. Just want to be real gentle here. Ooh, boy, that's going way across there. There it is. Okay, so, and see where I was off just a hair. Right there. In fact, that's odd. That's the same place it is right over here, right there. So it's not off enough to make any difference, but I'd rather not have that go off, but hey, it is what it is. So now see, here's that, see that section, that right-hand section there? We'll cut that off somewhere about here, and we'll use that for something else inside that, something else inside there. There'll be places for it. And the beautiful part of that is it's from the same sheet of glass, so it's going to be like compatible, the color and everything. All right, so let's do it again. That was so much fun. All right. You know what? I don't want any fooling around, so we're going to lube this thing again. I'm going to mark it. Here's my little... I'm going to get this out of the way. I don't ever want to take a chance on breaking that. My, look at that. You can already look at the color on that thing. And we're setting the tone for what that piece is going to look like. All right. Let's do. I'm going to say, well, it really, we couldn't ask for it to go. I want to look at that again. 34. Sometimes I'll look down there and I'll do and this will break your heart. I've done like a 30, I'm trying to get a 34, and I look down there and for some reason I end up being a 44. And then you cut that thing and the glass is going off the wrong place. See that little divot right there? That's not going to be a big deal. I just wish I didn't go off, but I knew when I went off. And if you go off a little bit, you got to try to get back. Okay, there's our little dot for the 34. But, you know, it's not anything that's going to cause a problem. It's just better if you don't do that. But this is not easy. I don't think this is easy. I wish it was easy, but this is really not easy. Okay. Setting up the line. There it is. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to run over this thing twice this time. I'm just looking at that line. All right. Here we go. I'll tell you what, when I get doing stuff like this, I don't take any of this for granted. At my age, working all day, every day, that's a gift. See that divot? That divot's right where the other one was. And that makes sense because that's where you're starting to run out. You're starting to think, how much more of this is ahead of me? Because you can't really look ahead of yourself because you need to stay concentrating on looking straight down. And you're getting down there, you start getting a little tired of it. Okay. Ooh, we didn't put so far that worked. See, that's an issue there. Okay. Bring this back over here. Boy, I've had some bad experiences with this handmade glass, and that's why I'm kind of froggy about this, because you're really putting some serious pressure right here. You get some of this handmade glass that's out of shape enough, and if there's a weak spot here or something, there goes a fracture across there, and going, oh man, well, I don't believe it's lack of skill. I think it's just, that's what it is. Okay, but, okay, we're going to, doing a slow roll there. I'd like to stay right on that line this time and not get off of it. Ooh, we just went down a big hump right there. I know you couldn't see it, but consistent, adequate pressure. That's what you have to have. See that hole right there? Oh boy, I'm so thankful for this. Well, I can barely see the line there. I'm thankful there it is. I'm thankful for this big wheel, because that big wheel just rolls right over it. We're getting in a hole right, oop, we went past it. There's some flaws right there. And when you know you're not too far from the end, it's a natural tendency to want to speed up. Boy, don't do that. Just take it easy. Okay, there, we made it. And it didn't break. That's the cool part. All right. Well, we had good luck with this doing it this way. Let's see if we can do it again. I'm just doing a gentle squeeze back here. Don't get heavy with it. The thing, if you really just clamp down on it, and and you're not getting a good fracture, then what'll happen? You put so much pressure on it, you're just going to make it go somewhere. Well, it may go that way. Oh, there it went. Wow. Now what I'm doing is kind of just nursing this thing along. All right. I think this is less about we're going to do one more. Less about my ability here and more about the good glass. And this is Yakagani. And if I read some of this, well, I don't read it all, but on some of these, I don't know what you want to call them, Facebook stained glass helper pages, or people get on there and somebody's got I can't get my soldering iron to work. And then here, no disrespect, everybody wants to help, but here comes 50 different answers for why your soldering iron's not working. And so, 34 again. And anyway, so somebody will have a piece of glass like this or another piece of glass, and it's got, they want it to go over here, and it's gone there and there. And what's wrong with this? Well, I think it's your glass cutter. Most of the time it's not. And it's that glass. And I've seen, I've seen people rip Yakagani glass. Oh, that's the hardest stuff to cut. And what I think you should do is put it in the oven, put heating pads on it, put electric blankets on it, put all this kind of stuff on it. I've never done that. Now, I'm not perfect with this stuff, but I'll tell you, the formula for getting this to work is just so simple. Adequate, consistent pressure. Case closed. That's what it is. Now, obviously, you got to have a decent glass cutter. If you're using a $6 glass cutter from Lowe's, that's not the one you need to use. But the real culprit, if this stuff doesn't work, and I'd say this, if we strip this next piece off and it doesn't work, it's not the glass. It's me. And what I did is somewhere along the way, I varied or reduced the amount of necessary pressure to get the correct score. And if you do that and you don't get the adequate, consistent pressure to make a good score, then when that fracture runs down to the spot where you've backed the pressure off or haven't been consistent, the fracture comes to that spot and it doesn't know where to go. And so it'll just go wherever it wants to go. And what the crying shame is sometimes it goes that way. And I know this from experience because years ago when I was in the mid-70s, when I was trying to learn how to do this, I had that happening all the time. Now, the glass was relatively inexpensive then compared to what it is now. Of course, we didn't make the kind of money back then we're making now either. This is nearly 50 years ago. And so, and then I went from Spectrum, which was, I think that's Oceanside now. I went from Spectrum, which was easy to cut, to Bullseye, so you could compare that to Oceanside, which is Spectrum today, and maybe Yakagani. This handmade, hand-rolled glass is harder glass, and it's a little more difficult to cut. And so you just got to do your due diligence and learn how to do it, and the way you learn how to do it is practice. And I'm blabbering here and we'll ruin the next piece, but most likely not. Every now and then, sometimes something goes wrong, and it's generally always my fault. It's not the glass cutters. I've worn out glass cutters, but boy, it takes a lot of cutting to wear out a glass cutter. And I cut a lot of glass, and I'm still running on that silver schnit, and I swear that's getting into the 5 or 6 year old area. I'll be glad when this third one is done, and be real honest with you. Boy, I'm putting some serious pressure on this thing. But this glass is hard, and you've got to get a good score. If you don't get a good score, you're going to have trouble. Well, I can smell the end. I can sort of see it now, right ahead of where I'm going. Man, it's getting goofy right there. Oh boy, there's all kinds of craters and holes in the end of that. If we'd have been on a small wheel glass cutter, we'd have had all kinds of problems down there. Okay. Well, is 3 going to be the charm? Okay, we're going to do it just like we did the last one. And cross our fingers and hope I got the... If it doesn't work, it's my fault, because I'm going to... Oof. There it is. We got it. Okay. Well, I need to answer this call. That's all I have with this thing right now. Now, to pay real close attention, and we'll trim off what we don't want here, and then we'll use that someplace else. But we'll pay real close attention to where we set these up. We want the grain on. I probably need another one, to tell you the truth. I'll get... unlike normal, we're going to put these in here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this side too, because I've got to pay attention to the color graining, and I don't want to get this whole thing built and then not get those lined up right. So while I can look at these in a light box, I'll match them up with the other side, so they'll be cut in advance. Normally I don't cut that far in advance, but those will be, because I need to stay on this color grain. All right. Well, listen, I think we're just going to trim up some. I don't know what's going to go here yet. I'll figure that out, but we've come a long way with this. All right. Well, thank you so much, and if you have questions about this or any of the rest of this stuff, be sure and let me know.